Me, more cowboy than you. That's stuck in my head. Anyway, we're talking about video games. Steam is having some issues, apparently.
With shovelware games, as it turns out, it's actually got worse. Way, way
Ruh-roh.
worse. And today's story basically started off because loads of us, me included, maybe you know the problem with shovelware games? As it turns out, it's actually got worse. Way, way worse. And today's story basically started off because
Shovelware
loads of
games?
us, me included, maybe you, went to Steam Next Fest. And early on in the most recent Next
Nope.
Fest, we kind of saw it was a heap of slop. And that was really quite worrying. And look, for many
Actually, I can weigh in here because the other day, hold on, let me grab Steam real quick. The other day I was looking at let's see, where's it at? Uh, where is it? New releases. And if you scroll through the new releases, I mean, come on. I mean, come on. Sultan's Game, come on. Sex Desert, come on now. The first Berserker Kazan, AI Limit. Y'all tell me how you like AI Limit. I watched the trailer for it. I haven't bought it yet. Tell me if you like it, if you don't like it. Um, it's actually not looking too bad. It looks like they might have cleaned it up a little bit, but that Sex Desert got through. But the other day when I looked, it was full of just absolute nonsense games. Let's see. I wonder if there's what about free games? How's it looking in free games? Yeah, free games is fine. I'm not seeing anything crazy. W. Carlac, by the way. Yeah, I don't see anything. Yeah, maybe that. I don't know what that is though. I could be wrong. But yeah, the other day, yeah, I mean, it was just full of absolute freaking sex slop games. Just the whole thing was just full, and I was like, "Well, what the hell?" Discovery queue. No, that's not what I'm looking for. We'll just go back to featured. But it does look like, on the surface at least. Oh my Jesus Christ. Uh, it does look like they have pulled it together somehow. But I mean, come on. I mean, come on. Let's be honest here. What are we doing? Uh, the Sultan's Game. These all look pretty, whatever. The fuck is this shit? Anomalous coffee machine? Yeah, I want to know if AI limit is good. So yeah, I mean, it looks like they're pulling it together. Well, 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 maybe not, maybe not. They almost got me there. They almost got me, but they're still there, but not near as bad, I guess. So I think we're good. I think we're chilling.
of us, there's the fear of missing out. And that can come in bad ways from publishers, but it can also be quite genuine. The idea that if there is a torrent of slop games on Steam, that you will miss out on good games because they'll just be buried. It is becoming a problem. And the thing is, Steam actually knows about it. The sort of hidden angle to today's whole story is what Steam is actually doing and how the publishing of games actually works. But to set the tone, almost 19,000 games released on Steam in 2024. That
Damn.
number keeps going up. And by the time of the most recent Next Fest, things
Wait,
24, that
80% of them had almost no players? What the fuck? I mean, I guess it's just kind of like the free market at work, though, right? So it's like The games are available, but they're not being pushed because nobody's playing, yada yada yada.
That number keeps going up, and by the time of the most recent Next Fest, things really began to feel different. So many slop games, lots of just weird AI stuff. And
Uh,
Aftermath posted this. It's got a good headline. Steam users worry good Next Fest games are being crowded out by AI slop. That's basically my experience of the start of this Next Fest. But it's a long headline, and it ends with the real problem is more complicated. And that's not
I really don't think it is. I think, you know, I'm sure there's like maybe they didn't do this, but like if it was me and I am running Next Fest, then I'm vetting out all these different games. So I'm like, I'm looking at these games and it's like, okay, clearly no budget is put behind this. Probably got made in like a couple hours with some fucking AI bullshit. So clearly, like the game has minimal effort for minimal return. That game is not going to be shown live to a general audience. Uh, yeah, there's got to be like some sort of like vetting process to kind of get rid of games that are obviously just slop.
just a tease to go and read the article. I mean, maybe it is that, but no,
And
it's
it is pretty
because it
easy to
is actually
pick them apart too, and like which one is like the slop game versus like which one is a specific like style of game.
more complicated. It's more complicated because Valve are doing something about it. And if Next Fest felt awful to you early on, it's because you were kind of part of an experiment. I've also got a truly novel experience to share. It's Boot Dev who have sponsored today's video. You see, there you can learn the coding. To sort out what the hell was going on, Aftermath spoke to Simon Carless. He's one of our go-to analysts as well. He runs a great newsletter. Now, they, and probably you, noticed this heap of slop early on in Next Fest.
True.
Awful looking AI-generated banner and capsule art, loads of shovelware.
Oh my god, the simulator games hopped off. And I'm guilty. I am guilty. I am a part of this. Because I play TCG Simulator. I even have it modded. And I play a Supermarket Simulator. I love both of those games. I think both of those games were fucking fantastic. Very simple, very easy play. I could just fucking it's like something like when I'm uploading a video to YouTube, I'm usually playing a simulator game because it's not hardware extensive by any means. So I'm just running around playing in this game while it's uploading. Oh shit, copyright. Fucking go to the other screen, deal with that shit. Go back to the simulator game and selling my freaking whatever the Pokemon variant of the cards are that they're selling.
Games and just vibes that made
Can't remember
Steam
what they're
feel
called.
real cheap. I mean, if you love PC gaming and you do it in Steam, but you go to Steam and you just see lots
These are the ones that I see the most. These ones here. The simulator games or whatever. I mean, there is a niche that people like these simulator games a lot, but these type of games, yeah. What the fuck?
of shit, that's just not going to feel good. But before long, it actually stopped to feel like that. We began to see less of the slop. And Simon frames it as a classic experiment. At the start, when you don't have data, you spread out impressions more evenly. And by you, I mean Steam here, right? And then, as you get that data, like click through rates, download rates, demo playtime, and so on, you then begin to dole out those impressions based on performance, right?
True.
So basically,
Yeah, it's letting the free market do its thing. I mean, obviously, if the game is good, it'll go up the ranks. If the game is not good, then nobody's gonna play it, and it'll go down in the ranks anyway. So yeah, I totally understand the Steam side of things.
it's finding product market fit. That's essentially what the
Yep.
Steam algorithm does, by the way. It doesn't take long for Steam users' activity to basically discover near non existent product market fit games because they're slop, they're shit, nobody wants them, so they've got awful click through rates. People don't download the demos and they delete the demos. That shows Valve
True.
that they should not show that game anymore because Valve wants you to download games. To
It's exactly what I said. literally almost word for word what I said. It's the free market. It's the free market at work. Good games win, bad games lose, and that's the way it should be.
Play games to buy games, so showing you slop is against their interests. That's basically the point. Valve's algorithm is there to sort the wheat from the chaff. So,
Yep.
to do that sorting, it needs to show you both. Now, their intent is to do that to show you the wheat so that you're happy. But what happened at NextFest is that for so many, the chaff scared them off. That's because first impressions count. That's why people were spooked. Hell, SteamDB went and made an AI filter, and Steam users are quite obviously wanting Valve to make an official AI filter. I guess people will do it with tags, perhaps, but you get the point. If you open Steam and see loads of slop, you will actually worry for the future of PC gaming because Steam basically is PC gaming right now. And you then think, how is a store raking in billions let torrents of slop just be thrown at customers? Well, if you're a YouTube user, which you probably are because you're here, you're probably aware already. And if you ask Valve about this, they'll actually have a clear answer. We all know Valve loves systems and numbers, so I'll start this segment on their terms. 1.7 million new customers bought a top 2023 game. They played 141 million
There.
hours of other games, spent $73 million in premium games, and $20 million on microtransactions. That was a lot of stats. The source is Valve, and that data is what we call a cohort analysis. It's when you grab a group of users, based on whatever your criteria are, usually a time period, and then you see what those users went and did. And Valve highlighted this cohort for a
W. Carlack again.
very clear reason. The thrust of their 2024 year
We
in
use
review
Spartan Kick.
was
Hell
that
yeah.
Steam is not just a store, that Steam
Fucking love
attracts
Baldur's
and
Gate.
retain
So good,
customers
dude.
who will then go on to
I honestly don't think I'll ever play another Baldur's Gate game again. Um, like, if Larian Studios is not the studio making this game, I'm gonna be honest, I'm probably not gonna play it. Like, I mean, I'll watch the trailer, I'll watch the gameplay, and maybe if it looks really good, that'll convince me. But right now, as it stands, uh, I will not play a single Baldur's Gate game
just a store.
uh, unless it's made by Larian Studios, because I'm a big believer in the free market, in allowing these good studios to truly shine over the Ubisofts of the world that just copy and paste and then give you a different world design. I'm not with that. I'm all about the creative process. I want to see you put yourself in the game in a way that is marketable to me. Okay? Straight up. That's all I care about. That's all I care about.
That Steam attracts and retain
And my God, was Baldur's Gate 3 a game made for me?
customers who will then go on to purchase more games. That's why the selection criteria for that cohort is new customers who bought a top game. It's essentially
True.
Valve saying that for their economy, the whole trickle down thing really does work. It works at scale, and it works because their algorithm makes it happen. And
Right.
that's also how they justify their 30%, which makes sense. Yes, you can put your game on the Epic Game Store and you can only have Tim Sweeney take 12%, but you're going to get no sales, basically. Steam does, in
Yeah,
fact, drive so many
true.
customers that Epic may as well not exist, at least in terms of it being a traffic source. And to ram that home, Valve say the new game revenue is up 10x over 2014
Oh my
and that it's up
God.
massively over 2023. Now, they then get a bit more granular in their numbers,
Crazy.
and that
Look at that spike. You see that shit? New release revenue year over year comparison. So like it steadily goes up here, takes a huge jump in 2020. That makes sense. It's right around pandemic. And then it jumps up again in 2021, 2022. And then you can see 2023 people finally got out of their mental illness and started going outside a little bit. And then everybody went back inside last year, just didn't come out again. We all became hermits. Oh my God. And that's true. It is true. I think last year well, late last year, probably October on to now, I think is the most I've gamed in like fucking 3, 4 years. It's crazy.
Up massively over 2023. Now, they then get a bit more granular in their numbers, and that's where today's video will really kick into gear. They say over 500 games made over 250 grand in their first 30 days, and more than 200 hit a million within that same time span. And
Oh
that
my
those numbers,
god.
people hitting those two milestones of 250k and a million, are up by 27 and 15% over 2023. Which does look like bloody good news. More games are succeeding than ever. But there's another way to read that. And that is that, well, even per those stats, only 3% of games hit 250k within 30 days, which to many is fucking depressing. But in a way, it's also not true. So now it's time for something that honestly blew my mind when I first learned about it. And I have to start with a confession. I kind of knowingly pulled a fast one on you, so the 19,000 number that I opened with is a true number, but it's misleading. That's basically the point. So get this, 79% of games released in Steam may as well not count toward that number. This is where it gets real fascinating, because that 19,000 is eye-grabbing. It's a really good headline. But what about the 79%? It sounds wild, but it's not. And actually, credit to Kotaku for pointing this out in January. As it turns out, 79% of games are what's called limited. This means that they don't have trading cards, badges, and can't have achievements displayed on player profiles, and they won't until Steam says they achieve, quote, broad player engagement and some commercial success.
W Steam.
Now, these games can still be sold to people, they can be recommended to
That's
people, but
crazy.
Steam
That's
basically
awesome.
does not acknowledge them otherwise. Here's where it gets interesting. We've
Yeah, it essentially gives them like you still have the opportunity, right? But like that's all you get. Like that is like the baseline. It's like it would be like if you had YouTube but you didn't have premium, right? So you still get to watch the videos for free, but you just got to deal with ads. Whereas like Steam is just like "Here, we're going to give you the platform for you to publish your game and get it out to the world. But we're not going to offer you that premium until we see that people want to interact with your game."
got some analysis from Bill Young, who's the head of games at Twitch. So he found that of the 18,992 games that launched in 2024,
Gee.
14,951 are still limited on Steam. And we're actually seeing that as the number of game launches increases, the portion of limited games is also increasing. That 79% is up from 2019's 66% number. Now, I know that I have
Crazy.
just absolutely barraged you with stats, and I'm sorry. I know it can be hard to follow and kind of annoying, but they
Yeah,
are
it's
all
not too
going
bad.
towards somewhere. And our first order lesson of those numbers is basically this. Our feeling of worry, disgust, and FOMO during Next Fest is actually fair because it is a real problem that we are seeing. But Valve already thought about it because the algorithm already deals with it.
Yeah, I still think Steam is like the de facto best platform for gaming. It really is.
Next Fest, in fact, had so much new that for a very brief period, we had a glimpse into the true hell of raw, unfiltered Steam. But before long, the store algorithm learned, and the slop was filtered out. And to understand this,
Mostly. Mostly. We covered this earlier in the video. Some of the slop, fucking AI, fucking and the reason like because like I do understand that adult games have a market, right? But it's so obvious when an adult game is just thrown together with some AI generated bullshit, copy paste formula shit. It's so obvious. I mean, come on. I mean, come on.
let's hit some of those numbers again. Valve count new release revenue as anything within 30 days of release. So what we can do is we can take a look at the week starting February 18th. Okay, SteamDB says that 385 games were released that week. 385 is obviously a lot of games. That comes out to 55 games a day. Some are slots, some are
Damn.
adult, some are clearly student projects, but most fell into Steam's limited category. Now, can you imagine
Makes
falling
sense.
into that category, right? I mean, that slop is filtered out by that category is really good. What about false positives? What if you fall into that? Well, if the Steam algorithm feeds us a tailored personal reality, then what are we missing? Actually, this gets to some things that are fucking scary. So, to work it all out, dug a bit deeper. As customers, we've got a fear of missing out on a great game, and as devs, well, we're afraid of being wrongly limited. So let's work the problem by breaking our sample week down a bit more. Of the 385 games, 20 were premium games with over 1,000 followers, which we know because we highlighted them in our members' newsletter, which will be
Mm.
linked below. Anyway, there's a mix of AA, AAA, indies, a whole bunch, and excepting King of Fighters getting completely wrecked over networking, which I suppose is pretty typical for a fighting game, all of those games have at least a 75% user rating. In fact, half are above 90. Yes, half are above 90. That seems
Damn.
absolutely insane and amazing until you think about it. Steam's job is to show you things that you will like. So, assuming it's got enough games to work with and enough people to match those games to, Steam will identify winners and grow them. Ish. Because there's a little more to this. Diving into those games, only 6 have got over 1,000 reviews. 3 of those are AAA games. Most have only got 300 to 600 reviews, and that is a problem. The reason why is fairly simple. The general belief is that the revenue that corresponds to about 400 to 500 reviews is what will typically pay a full year wage for an American solo developer. Making that in a month is absolutely awesome, by the way, but we're talking about the most successful games within our sample. And remember, our sample is a selection of the most successful games. That's kinda grim. And when you look at most of the other games, even within our very successful sample, you see that most have not increased their review count much at all over the last few days. And in a way, that's actually by design. Now, I could give you some anecdotes based from, our time releasing The Pale Beyond on Steam, but Chris Zukowski has a lot more experience than I do and a lot more perspective. Aftermath talked to him, and here's how he explained what's going on here. Steam's release process begins by giving a relatively equal number of impressions to just about any game that does not fall into the Gen AI slop bucket. This happens for the first 2 or so days. And in this period, many Steam users can see a game. If Steam thinks the game is particularly well targeted to you, it'll actually show it to you somewhere. And to get even more exposure and even more data for the algorithm, Steam will feed that game through the discovery queue. Now, what then happens
Mm.
next is what makes or breaks studios. If your game sells well from those initial impressions, Steam will give you more visibility. If you do not sell well, you will stay firmly in your niche. Now, you will get the odd algorithmic sale here or there, but by and large, it
Fair.
will be on you to sell your game.
That makes
And
sense.
if this happens to you, the Steam store will feel a lot more like the Epic Game Store because you're just kind of in sad algorithm land. Because, as far as Steam knows, when it shows people your game, they don't decide to buy it. And to be clear, in this period, the thing that matters the most is actually revenue. Steam tracks loads of statistics, but revenue is king. Now, Chris is not talking about bad games staying in their niche, though that absolutely is the case. That does happen with bad games. What he's talking about here, though, is gross revenue, and he has a number. For him, the number is 250K, right? 250K seems to be one of the real thresholds where if you cross it, you will start to be shown far more broadly. And funny enough, that 250K actually matches Valve's use of 250K that we talked about earlier from their 2024 year in review. So, most games need to break 250K revenue in Steam to see
I'm assuming that breaking that revenue count for Steam also shows them that people are behind the game enough that they're not going to waste time pushing that game out. And I feel like a lot of times too, like when they hit 250K, especially if it's a game that like people are looking after, like I mean, even fucking Assassin's Creed Shadows, fucking, I guarantee that game made over 250K. But Um, I think the interesting thing to me is that I'm wondering how many games just barely make that threshold and then get pushed by the algorithm and then get either monumentally more successful or if they still stagnate even with the extra advertising. I'm actually genuinely curious.
Major long term success. Long term success generally is possible, but not major long term success. So, with that in mind, we'll go back to our cohort of 20 games. Of them, 6 hit the 250k mark, 14 did not. And that's even though these 20
Ooh,
had ratings over 75% and half of them had ratings over 90%. Most of our 14, again, that's the games in this cohort who did not make
it seems like Steam has a lot of checks and balances put in place. So like even if you're like so essentially cuz like you could get a really stupid fucking terrible game pushed to the top of the charts if somehow there was a popularity push behind it. Um and that just wouldn't be fair. So it does seem like they've even thought of that to the point to where they can essentially base it off of kind of a merit system in a way, not a merit system, but like a value system. So like you have to essentially run the gauntlet in Steam's free market to show that you provide the best value, which then Steam rewards you by shoving you out to the world and pushing you way harder than they'll push 90%, 80% of the games on the platform.
250 or more,
It's interesting. I
well,
really like it.
they are making between 10k
Because I like it because it's honest. It shows you what gamers are playing. It shows you what people are interested in playing. Because obviously, like the big titles that get reveals at game shows and stuff, they will get pushed to a degree, but it also corrects because after it does get pushed, if the number doesn't add up to the push that it was supposed to have, it'll immediately fall down into that 80% and disappear.
and 35k, which is not a lot of money if you are supporting jobs. And remember that this 20 is not a representative sample of the 385 games that launched in that week. It's the best 20. So,
True.
yeah, this is even with selection bias cutting in our favor. Now, those cases that I talked about are net revenue, not gross, but you will often hear gross revenue numbers be talked about for games. And when you do, there's something really important you need to know. A very common rule of thumb is that you will see about 50% of the gross revenue that is reported on your Steam dashboard. Basically, 30% goes to Valve, then you've got refunds, taxes, payment processing, just other stuff. And if you had a publisher, well, depending on your publishing terms, you may see 30% of that 55% until you've paid back recoup. Some devs actually see no money at all until they've hit recoup, or maybe even hit double their recoup, because some
Hmm.
publishing deals in this industry are absolutely vicious. Anyway, so
I
far this
wouldn't be
does look rather
surprised.
doomer, doesn't it? But in a way, it's not. In a way, it's competition. So
Just reminds me of the hip hop industry, but you know, just less gangster. Because like there's nothing worse for an artist nowadays in the music industry than to be a hip hop artist. Like, because all these hip hop artist labels and shit, they're literally there to give you exposure, and then you have to literally sign your life away to them. Like, I don't think there's been very rare circumstances where there's been an artist that I enjoyed the art they put out to the degree that I did when they were no longer with the label. Like a good example is Post Malone. Post Malone's one of those. The mainstream shit, oh, fucking mainstream shit was ass. But the new shit, the different fucking he had that one album that was like 80s inspired. He has a fucking country album now. It's insane. It's so good, man. He killed it.
So what I'm now going to do is flip the script.
But I think it's the same thing for developers and stuff too. Is essentially the point that I was trying to make with that. Um, yeah, there is a degree of if you can find a way to do it, try and do it. But I mean, if you have to, if you have to go through a third party in order to just get your name out there a few times, it's unfortunate. But just try to get the most favorable contract you can, I suppose.
To make this hit, let's pretend we're devs and we're talking shop. So, is the solution to say that Steam is bad and you should not release in Steam? Obviously, no, it's not. Yes, there is slop, and that slop is worrying, but what I've covered in this video shows how Steam systemically quashes slop as
Right.
soon as it is identified. If there's a problem, then I think the problem is basically this: it is launch day importance. You live or you die by your launch window. And in some ways, that can
That is true. That's why everybody's so hesitant right now because Rockstar is kind of running the game industry right now when it comes to possible launch times because they were slated to launch in fall of 25. They've come out and said absolutely fucking nothing about it. So, for all we know, they could shadow drop it in fucking July. They could shadow drop it in fucking January of next year. We wouldn't know because Rockstar never talks. So in they're pretty good. Like you hardly any rumors about Rockstar are ever true because most of the time they're just from some Reddit fucking bird brain. Uh, but I'm trying to think. Yeah, there's not really anything else that's slated for this year that is like detrimental to your game sales if it comes out at the same time as you. Because I mean, there's other like successful games, should be successful games that are going to come out this year, but not not to the degree that Rockstar is going to absolutely obliterate everybody with GTA 6.
feel bad. In a sense, it is Valve's fault, but fault is maybe too loaded a term. Launch is the time that a game should be judged. That's fair, that makes sense.
True.
And Steam's got a bit of a problem. It can only get data on a game's performance when the game is out there generating data, i.e., when
That is why I so much love like early access, open beta, like these types of programs, not only from a developer standpoint, like I'm not a developer by the way, but from a developer standpoint, I could see where it's hugely helpful for you guys as developers, but it's also helpful for us as players. And you can see this actually take form pretty much perfectly with Path of Exile 2, where the developers are keeping a very, very, very close eye on the community, and the early access is in an insanely good state of play. So when the launch happens, oh my God, when the launch happens, it's going to be crazy good.
it's launched. And it's less that you are destined for success until Steam murders you, and it's more that if you perform well on your own merits, Valve will then expand your reach until new cohorts of users begin to stop buying as much, and that's pretty much
Yeah.
as far as the algorithm will push you. It's on you to make a fun game that is visually appealing with a broad enough audience and a well selected price point that releases at a good level of quality. For
Yeah, it's a free market.
the best shot, what you have to do is nail that, have a quality launch, and cluster all your marketing efforts onto day one, with priority number one being 50 reviews ASAP. That tends to be the general advice. That does mean that we'll fix it later attitude is obviously not acceptable because that will hurt you. And in a way, you could say this is us jumping through Valve's hoops, but let's again frame shift. Because it would be lovely if Steam just fed you impressions for longer, but think about it from Steam's perspective. There's a torrent of new games absolutely all the bloody time. And that's not even
True.
counting the store space taken up by events, by sales, DLC, and everything else. So, what's it going to do? How is it going to dole up its impressions? There's always going to be a balance there, so there'll naturally have to be some sort of limit around your launch. Now, what I've just said is essentially how we should act when we think about Steam. But that's not necessarily because everything's perfect. That's how we should act to get good results. There is a deeper concern, and it's what actually spooks me. Steam can only act based on your past behavior. That means that by default, it will pigeonhole you. And that means it can actually make it hard to find truly new games. Because on Steam, on YouTube, on everything, you live in a personalized reality. A developer may have a totally new game that you would fucking love, that you would 100% buy if given the chance, but Steam just literally cannot show you because it's only able to follow your past actions.
Do agree. I do agree with that. It's no different than pretty much any other algorithm when it comes to YouTube, and I would say most effective is probably TikTok. Uh, TikTok is insanely good at sending you exactly the shit that you have been subscribing to. I think it's a very, very strong. It's a very strong algorithm, and I do believe Steam is the same way.
In a way, it's kind of not Steam's fault. It's a natural problem that emerges from all of this being algorithmically driven.
Yep.
Yet, it being algorithmically driven is what saves us from the torrents of slop. It's what made the later days of Steam Next Fest actually feel really good versus the earlier days when the algorithm did not have data. And it is how Valve justifies, rightly in many ways, their 30% cut, because their algorithm and their traffic does generate sales. It makes
True.
successes. It is absolutely awesome
Very
to
true.
watch Valve problem.
There was a few there's a few different games that absolutely blew up on Steam, and some of them from out of nowhere.
Solve and come up with ways to just deal with the slot problem. But doing it all with
Yeah,
systems and algorithms comes at the deeper cost of personalized reality. That makes change hard. That can make innovation hard. It can mean that if you want to make a game, you need to make that game based on what you know does well on Steam, because Steam operates everything based on the data that it has. And if we only follow lagging indicators, how can we be truly new and creative? How can we discover truly new things? These are the problems of our modern world. You see them in YouTube, you see them in news, and here we see them in Steam, both in the good that they drive, the innovation that they do actually help, the games that only exist and get funded because Steam can basically get you shitloads of sales without a marketing department. But it is
true.
at a cost. A cost you will feel and reckon with, because as this is happening, we've also got the crumbling of physical games and rising hardware prices. Those are going to
Indeed.
precipitate quite a lot of change in our industry, and you can learn about that in our next report.
W Video. That I love Bell Ular News. I always gotta pronounce it slow, otherwise it's a tongue twister for me. Anyway, yeah, I couldn't agree more. This is a fantastic video. Go to his channel, give him a sub, give him a like. Uh, yeah, not really much else to say other than Steam's the GOAT. They're the GOAT. You make good games, you attract a lot of players, your game is successful. Who would have thought? That's gonna be it for me on this video. Not too much else to say other than when's the last time you had a hot dog? Put it down in the comments below. Goodbye.